show how the Allscripts clinical qualifier can also be of help of getting your codes to be as specific as possible right at the get-go. Okay, so we're going to show some of the features within Allscripts TouchWorks for ICD10. So anytime you're in the orders area, history builder, also known as the ACI or add clinical item space, the appearance of this area might be different depending on how the user has configured it. You might have it in a windowed mode or in full screen mode. You might set up your left pane of problems, meds, orders, and allergies. You might set that up instead of with chevrons. You might set that up using the full screen type of view where you have menus similar to over to the right. Especially good for long problem lists, long med lists. This patient, empty patient, so pretty easy to set up the chevron view to look at these items. But our area of concern is the right side, where we're in the active diagnosis adding area, and we have right now it's just in the favorites of this particular user, and you have the diagnoses along with a column for ICD-9 and a column for ICD-10. Over on the left side you have the notebook paper that allows you to assess the diagnosis, and you may or may not have this pencil. The pencil throughout the application since the 11.4 upgrade, this is the one-click edit pencil. If you don't see the one-click edit pencil, well, this filter, the active search filter settings here, that's what controls the one-click edit. So if you uncheck the one-click edit, your one-click edit pencil goes away. Same thing goes for all these different things. You can read the tips on problem searching to get explanations for all these. The main one will be the one-click edit, the billing indicators, the exclude non-billable codes from the search, and then whether you're going to view or not view the ICD-9 and ICD-10. Okay, so I want to demonstrate the clinical qualifier tool within Allscripts. And so what the clinical qualifier tool does is, if you look for a diagnosis, and it's a perfect example right up at the front. Well, if I'm searching for abdominal pain, well, abdominal pain is not very specific. It does have an ICD-9, as we know. It does have an ICD-10 code, but it's still fairly non-specific. So if I have some more specificity when I go to add the abdominal pain or assess the abdominal pain, so I'm going to click, it brings up the clinical qualifier tool for this set. So you see what the clinical qualifier tool does is it gives me a menu of slightly more specific acceptable codes for abdominal pain, basically going out to a further digit so that I can say, oh yeah, this was generalized abdominal pain rather than just plain abdominal pain. And so when I pick an item in this small clinical qualifier box, it will incrementally take away the codes that don't match that qualifier. So this is an easy one because it only has one clinical qualifier box, and when I picked generalized, there was only one choice. So there's only one choice within this clinical qualifier tree for abdominal pain that I point as generalized. Okay. If I had picked epigastric, same thing, one choice. Left lower quadrant, one choice. So the upper abdomen, one choice. unspecified one choice. So get the idea that now that doesn't, just clicking the qualifier does not add it. You still have to, once you click the qualifier, you come down here and say, okay, I'm ready to assess that unspecified location abdominal pain code. And so I have assisted my billing department in getting, making sure that I, at least in some way, put a little bit more detail on something more, with a little bit more detail. If I wanted to find information about an ankle sprain, added to the chart, so I click on the ankle sprain, and so now you see I have two boxes. So my ankle sprain needs more specificity. For ICD10, it wants to know whether this is an initial encounter, subsequent encounter, or a visit for sequela from an old injury. So it's initial encounter for ankle sprain, and it's of the right ankle. So you see now I have incrementally searched the list of ankle sprain codes and come up with the right ankle sprain initial encounter that I can select. Alright, we're going to look at a right radial fracture, right radial head fracture. And when I select that diagnosis, I'm going to get my clinical qualifier tool. This one has 5 clinical qualifier boxes because I already chose the laterality, otherwise there would be 6. And so I'm able to, from my evaluation of the patient, to know that it's a closed fracture, non-displaced. It's the initial encounter. I do not know what type it is unless I had spoken or pulled out my orthopedic fracture handbook, and whether it's healing or not is irrelevant because it's not yet. It's been the initial encounter. So I have 2 items to choose from here. Based on this, maps to these, and so I can choose this most specific one. They have the same mapped code, but a closed non-displaced fracture of the head of right radius. And so I choose that most specific code with the S52.124A ICD10 code to go to my encounter form. Now, back to the provider-friendly terms. Remember, I mentioned there's over 250,000 provider-friendly terms, and those map to the 68,000 ICD-9 terms. Any diagnosis that you have, you can right-click on it, and if you wanted to see that mapping, that's where you go to the View Diagnosis Description. So in the bold at the top will be the provider-friendly term. Then down in the little spreadsheet below, it will tell you what the ICD-9 code and description was if you actually pulled out an ICD-9 book, and then it will tell you the ICD-10. So here's that S52.124A, and here's how it words it: non-displaced fracture of head of right radius, initial encounter for closed fracture. So a long diagnosis. Ours was long enough that we chose up here, but not as long as the true wording within the ICD-10 nomenclature. And so this is why this is termed a provider-friendly term. Talked in the PowerPoint about the severe asthma and how severe persistent asthma, whereas in ICD-9 there was not a way to put in the severity. The provider-friendly terms allowed for severity, but not the code. But now with an ICD-10 code, you do. We can get a better look at this by instead looking for persistent asthma, so we can get the different persistent categories. So mild persistent, J45.30, moderate persistent, J45.40, and then the severe persistent, J45.50. Then if I have a moderate persistent asthma and I see the plus sign, I know I can get more specific with that diagnosis. So I click on that moderate persistent asthma, and I will get my clinical qualifier tool. And as we saw in the PowerPoint presentation, I can choose from an uncomplicated version, a version of with an acute exacerbation, or a version with status asthmaticus. So leveraging the clinical qualifier tool to get as specific with my diagnosis as possible. And as you see, remembering that just clicking on the qualifier windows does not get the diagnosis added to the chart. You have to use narrow the list with the tool and then pick the one that you want. Alright, so once October 1st comes and you want to free up some space here, if you want to get rid of this ICD10 column, just go to your active search filter settings and deselect the ICD10. And so that will remove those. This same concept will apply from your problem list as well. So on your desktop, your adult patient view, you notice if you have it showing both the ICD-9 and ICD-10, go to the quick filter and remove the ICD-9. Same thing for the one-click edit. If you need that, you want that one-click edit or don't want it, or the billing indicators, those would show here. So, moderate persistent asthma, I might want to use the one-click edit to quickly describe something about that asthma after caught in house fire as child. Some kind of special trigger. I can put the dates of onset here if I wanted to say the specific date or age, or if I wanted some kind of descriptor that would always attach to that. That's where the one-click edit allows you, and those descriptions and impressions, whether you use the description or the impression, those will show in the output of your notes moving forward as well. And the impressions, old impressions, will be over here in the gray area, and you can copy them over or put a new one. So ICD-10 functionality, the clinical qualifier tool that I've just demonstrated, it's optional. So anywhere you see this double triangle, those are where your personalized settings are found. And so in the personalized settings, there is a section for problem. And within the problem section, there is the bottom entry. When expanding a problem in search, you can choose to always launch the clinical qualifier tool when adding a problem, or you can choose to only launch the tool when you click the little plus sign, or you can just expand the list. This is what you currently is set now before October 1st until this functionality is available. So just to know how that functions now, I've changed my setting. I go back to that radial head fracture. And then within that radial head fracture, right radial head fracture, now when I click on it, the plus sign doesn't launch the clinical qualifier tool. Instead, it opens up that, it expands it, and then I can choose from all these diagnoses to find the one. Okay, I know it's closed, I know it's non-displaced. Here we go, head of closed, non-displaced, head of right radius, and that might do the trick. Most of the time that will get me where I need to go. Right now it's off. Clinical qualifier tool is off. The way I demonstrated to you that it will launch the clinical qualifier tool anytime you select a problem that has more than one choice. And then so the other option would be that it would launch the qualifier tool only if you click the expander button. So that's, again, where did you set that preference? On the clinical desktop, look for the double triangle all the way to the right of the toolbar. Personalize. Go to the problem menu of personalization settings, the bottom entry when expanding a problem in search. So let's say I think I like the middle category. Only launch that clinical modifier when I click the expand button so that I get that help. So let's go back to our asthma. So moderate persistent asthma, if I just click the name of the diagnosis, it will put that code on there. But let's say I think I need more specificity than that. Then I can click the plus sign, and then I get my clinical qualifier window with acute exacerbation. Select that option, and that's been added. I hope this demonstration has been helpful for you to understand how you can leverage the system to make the ICD10 transition as painless as possible. Not no pain, just less pain. Contact us with any questions, or if you need any further demonstrations of the clinical qualifier tool, be glad to help with that.